leading organizations with intentionality and purpose is complex work, and dedicated leaders work tirelessly each and every day to build impactful cultures of collaboration. But effective collaboration is difficult and messy. The good news is you don't have to do it alone. Join the Jigsaw Learning Team for leading collaborative response, sharing insights for leaders committed to establishing, refining, and deepening collaborative response in their organization.
No, it's just me. She loves all of you. It's just me. So our very first get together as Jigsaw Learning, as the team had grown, we were carpooling to Drumheller. And so Kurtis and Lorna had asked me to pick up Arlene and then pick up Nancy. And so I had picked up Nancy first, and we had some really great conversation. And I was so excited about her enthusiasm about Jigsaw Learning and collaborative response. And I was absolutely in awe that whole weekend that we worked through of her ability to think in French and speak in English. And I know that by the end of that weekend, she was absolutely exhausted. So we're leaving Drumheller, and we need gas in the car. So, okay, well, I'll put gas in the car, and Nancy and Arlene go use the washroom and get some snacks and come out. And, they open the car doors, and Arlene climbs in, and I thought Nancy climbed in, but she just put her purse and her snacks in the car because she was going to go back and use the washroom because there'd been a line. Well, knowing how exhausted she was and how tired she was, it being quiet in the back seat of the truck really wasn't kind of surprising. So Arlene and I are just chatting away. No, we left Nancy behind because she went back in and we didn't realize it. So she is at a gas station as a French-speaking person in a community that she knows nothing about. These strange people that she's just met have left her there with no phone, no purse, no way to get a hold of anyone. Nancy, like I said, I am still in awe that you speak to me to this day, and I am still totally embarrassed that I did it. But I am so glad that we have been able to laugh about it over the years that we've connected.
I have to say, I might have been sorry at the time, but it's given us the source of one of the best stories that we have to be able to share out. So yeah, there's a silver lining for sure.
Very much at your expense. We're sorry about that, Nancy, because we know it was traumatic.
When I said this story to people, they know me, they were like, no, you're never quiet. So how come they think for a minute you can be quiet? I'm just, it's in English, so I'm quiet in English.
It's different.
It's another world.
So Nancy, why don't we go back then? Because that was, fairly early in our relationship with you and your work around collaborative response. Can you give us a little bit of a timeline and what it's looked like from when you became exposed to collaborative response as a concept or a framework to where you are today at Ecole Notre Dame?
Okay, that's a long story.
Yeah.
I think it's about a 10-year story. Maybe I will say 12 year actually.
Yeah,
because I think it is.
The first time I met you, it was I was principal of another school, École à la Découverte. And I was trying to do something with my team to make sure we can respond all the needs of the student. Mm-hmm. So that's like I start there, and I start a little bit doing the collaborative approach at this school, but not a lot because I was new in the process and I was thinking more about it. Then I was not ready to put it in place. I need to absorb everything,
Mm-hmm.
And then I left this, I got a transfer as a consultant for this Centre Nord. So I was consultant for a few years. And at those years, I helped school to implement the collaborative approach. Mm-hmm. So my role was really to be with the school, working with the school principal and the admin team of the school, and going to this journey with them. And we were also working with you. I guess you remember, but you were working with Centre Nord, and my job was to coach the team to do that. So we were working with the Jigsaw Learning team, and then different team who were implemented the collaborative approach. And then I did that for a few years, and I got an offer from the consortia and with Jigsaw Learning to work more at the provincial level. So then I did the same thing, but at the provincial level. So with the 4 francophone districts of the province. So that was an amazing experience because they were at different places, because they already started the process, the journey. They was already working with you. They have like the theory, if I can say that, like they read the book, they have the theory, but my job was, okay, how can we do that for real in the school? Because it's like you have this session, you know how to do it, but it's kind of different when you have to live it.
Yeah, put it in place.
And then I did that for a few years, and I really appreciate that because I can work with different teams. They were at different place and observe not I don't want to say their mistake, but their challenges. Like all they had, like, oh, you have some school will say we don't have enough time. Some other school will say, oh, we are a little school, so how we can do the team, how we can build a team, how we can do that and do this in a different context, because each school have a different context. Absolutely. And in the Francophone school board, it's also like some schools are really small, some schools are bigger, different things. So I learned a lot from those schools I work with. And after that, I had an offer to take the principal of this Ecole Notre Dame, and I accepted, and I'm really happy about it. And now I have to, how you say that in English? My feet have to follow my word.
You have to walk the walk. Yeah,
exactly. Thank you. So I kind of arrived at this school. They already doing the collaborative meeting and everything, but now I have to, okay, what I was teaching and telling people to do, now I have to do it with my teams, and I face some challenges, the same as I was seeing with in the other school. But it's kind of different when you have your 2 feet in, because it's you are less can I say objective? Like you cannot look at it, you look at it differently.
Yeah.
So it's my 3rd year here at Notre Dame, and here I am. I'm still doing the collaborative meeting, collaborative response, but it's kind of a different doing it as a consultant than doing it as a leader.
Well, and you mentioned your association with us and Jigsaw Learning, and we've been so fortunate to have you as a learning associate. Even today, we still get the requests from different Francophone authorities where could there be someone that can come and share out? So your expertise and learning through multiple different points of time has been really outstanding to be able to share out. And again, has probably coalesced all that learning now into the role that you have as the person who actually has to live it, not just the person giving advice for someone else living it as well.
And just a note to our listeners, if you go to our website, we do have a French section on our website, and that primarily has been built by Nancy.
Absolutely. And it's funny because I use this section almost every week. I'm just like, I did that, but I'm still going in there. Oh, okay. Like yesterday I was on the website looking for the roles. I was like, okay, I have to put that in place at the next meeting. So where are they? Like I was still on this and I always look at the French one, but also I always go and look at the same section in English, because they are different resources.
Yeah.
But they are kind of both really interesting for me. So sometimes I look at the English version and I'm just kind of copy the best idea of both worlds.
Yeah,
That's
nice.
good.
Okay, so Nancy, you've talked a little bit, and we should be really clear for the listeners that every time you say collaborative response, it's having to think in English, because in your francophone school, it's not known as collaborative response, it's known as approach. Can you share with us how collaborative response is translated through your schools?
Approche collaborative.
There we go. So when you think about approach collaborative within your own school, can you share with us, you said kindergarten to grade 6, about 445 students. How do your teams meet in your school? When does that happen? How does it happen? And how frequently? Can you describe how the layers of team operate within Notre Dame?
So we have those collaborative meeting every 6 weeks.
Okay.
And I have 4 different teams. I have kindergarten, it's 3 teachers, me as a principal, the vice principal, and learning coach.
Okay.
I have a team of grade 1 and 2 with like 6 teachers, the same person, vice principal, principal, and learning coach. Grade 3 and 4, and 5 and 6. So usually we are like we are doing the meeting every 6 weeks. So kindergarten are the Monday, grade 1 and 2 are Tuesday, and it's after school for us. We decide to do it after school. It's in the we count this time in their assignable
time. Yeah.
assignable time. So it's assignable. So they know at the beginning of the school year, they receive a calendar with all the date for the school year.
Okay.
And I told them you have to be there. It's not a time, like you're not supposed to have an appointment or have something. You have to be there. And it's from 3:30 to 4:30.
Okay.
1 hour.
1 hour
Only.
every 6 weeks.
And we have those meeting every 6 weeks with all the teams, so everybody is involved. I also have every 6 weeks a meeting with the EA, teacher
Educational
assistant.
assistants, yeah.
Yes, every 6 weeks I have a meeting with them too. Not the same week, because we only have 5 days per week. So I have this with them every 6 weeks too. That's our one layer of our collaborative meeting.
Mm-hmm.
I also have a meeting with what we call second layer, the team.
Your school
support. Yes, student support team. Thank you. In French, we say équipe de soutien à l'apprentissage. So I also have this team. This team is the learning coach, my vice principal, and I, and we meet every 2 weeks, every second week. Okay. And we organize the schedule to make sure we always meet the week before the collaborative meeting with teacher.
Okay.
So I know from my learning coach where she is on her target intervention with which student. So we already have a list of students who doesn't need anymore the target intervention. So we are ready to know if they bring some new student at the collaborative meeting with teacher. We already know how many space or which kind of group we already have in place, and if we can add student in different group or a target intervention group. Mm-hmm. And we also have like the student case study. So right. We talk about student on the support team, or we talk about student at the collaborative response, and this student is coming pretty often in the meeting. We talk about this student in our support team. At some point, we will decide, okay, let's have a case study for this student.
Yeah.
So we have the 3 layers of meeting. When I get to this school, they already have collaborative meeting, like with the teacher every about every 2 months, every 6 to 8 weeks. So they were used to that. When I get here, I had those 2 layers, especially the one with the support team.
Yeah.
You know, this layer, I think it's a really important one, because now the teacher know we arrived to the meeting ready for them. But also, if you have a student who have more needs, you don't really need to talk about the student at the collaborative meeting, because you know we're going to address at the support meeting. And it takes few, like last year, it was a little bit hard for teacher to realize that, because they didn't know about the other layer of a support. But we have to be consistent, and I repeat a lot the same thing all the time. Okay, we hear about this student, we're going to put this student on the list for the support team. We're going to talk about this student. But at the beginning, they were kind of maybe thinking this student is going to be lost. Like, we're not going to talk about this student.
Right.
But with the time, they realize, okay, we follow up with this student, like, because we talk about every 2 weeks. So after the week of the meeting, we also have a list of students we want to talk about it. And the member of the support team, we share the action after, like, we have the same structure. So after the support team meeting, we decide, okay, who's going to talk with this teacher regarding this student? Who's going to work with this teacher to help for this student? Who's going to do the next step for this student? So that's the kind of a structure we have in place. It's not perfect, because we have other issue. Maybe you heard about we have problem with buses in Alberta. So last year we have always the bus always late, and we schedule all the meeting after school. But the bus was late, like not 15 minutes late, but 2 hours late. So instead of having all the students gone by 3:30, that's the time the meeting starts, 3:30 to 4:30. But we had students until 5:30. So one of us cannot go, like my vice principal or myself, or sometimes both of us cannot be at the meeting. So that was hard, because we faced this challenge, and we still have this challenge, but this year we are used to this. So we are more prepared for that. So last year, what we decided, we asked the district to organize the schedule of the teacher assistant to be able, they can stay with a group of students for the bus, and we can have the meeting with our teacher.
Right.
But we
and
have
that's happening
that.
On those 6-week cycles.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we have to think about it like few weeks before to organize that. But I was really proud, because even we had all those issue with the buses, we had all the meeting. We never missed any meeting last year, and this year it's the same challenge we have, but we are already organized. We know the week of the collaborative meeting, we know we have that, and like nothing can happen. We are gonna do the meeting. So we have to be really consistent and think outside the box to make sure it's happening, because it's so easy to say, we know what, we have to cancel. And then you cancel once and you wait 12 weeks and it's 3 months, and
That's right.
and then you cancel another one. You have like few months and you never talk about student. So that's the kind of the structure. I can talk more if you want, but
No, that makes perfect
the main
sense.
structure. And
Thank
it's not
you.
perfect. We have to adjust. And this year we have more students, so more classroom. So we change the team. So that's another thing, that the group, the team they were used to work together, but now we have to change it. So it's kind of a different dynamic.
Yeah.
Working with new people.
But I think that speaks to, Nancy, what we always share is that each and every year you're going to have to adjust, transform, keeping the same key principles in place, but there's always going to be a next challenge, a next complexity that we have to think through. So I love how you've described that for us and for our listeners.
And the norm, like I think we changed the team, but we have the same norm, and we use the same as last year. Last year, when I start with the team, we build the norms together, and this year we did the activities. It's on the website. I don't know the name in English, but when you say that's our norm, why we doing that, what we should see, what we should hear, and what we're gonna do if somebody doesn't respect the norms. So we did that this year with the same norms, and we just work on that. Solidify.
Yeah.
Solidified, yeah.
The norms. Another thing we did at the beginning of the year, I think was really helpful with the, bigger school, bigger staff, changing the group, the team, collaborative team. I should show you, but I don't know if I can stand up or not, but we did an activity. So I said, that's going to be your collaborative team. And I will show you, okay? Just a second.
Yes, please.
That would be awesome. And as Nancy's getting that, we'll also ensure in the show notes that we put that unpacking team norms template that Nancy was discussing. That's a really powerful exercise for a team to be able to ensure that the norms just aren't words on a paper that we gloss over, but they actually are. These are what we believe, why we believe in them, what we would see and not see when they're lived. And then most importantly, and I'm sure that was an interesting dialogue with your team of what will we do when someone breaks a particular norm?
And it was really interesting because they were really strict about that.
Oh, that's good.
More strict than me. So that's the norm. Like we put that on a table. Like it's kind of so we put that on a table.
So anyone who's listening, Nancy just shared with us a table display, a plastic table display that goes right on the middle of the table that has the norms written right out. That's awesome.
And we did that at the beginning of the year. I don't know if you can see well. That's my kindergarten team. Okay. So that's my kinder. They have to write how many years of experience they have total together. Right. So my kindergarten have 35 years of experience if they add each one. We have to say how many level we taught. So maybe you taught in grade 1, so they have to add that. And in how many different schools, and what's your strain, and what's your what you like what's your
interests.
Yeah. So we did that together because I was thinking it's really interesting for them to know we have so much knowledge together.
That's
like, look, we have 35 years of experience together. So let's put some, and it's make a shift in our team, I think, because they realize, wow, we know what we're doing. Mm-hmm. They give them some confidence. And I always put this paper on the meeting room. Every meeting I put that just to remind them, like, okay, we are together and we know. And if sometimes, it's one thing, like when you have the meeting, they will say, okay, what we do with this, what can we do with this issue or with this challenge or with this student? And they will say, oh, maybe we should ask like for a specialist to come. Yeah. And I just have to say something like, I think we have enough experience to do something, what we can do.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Nancy, that is so great, because we often talk about the expertise in the building or the expertise that we bring to the room or to the team, and that there is so much there, but we just sometimes make assumptions of, especially our own expertise, that I can't possibly contribute anything more than what everybody else already knows. But just going through that simple activity honors the fact that there and actually makes it explicit that we have a lot of experience. We've got a lot of knowledge. I love that activity, Nancy, because it is that reminder that we have the experience at the table right now,
Mhm.
and
Yes.
the knowledge and expertise too, that we just need to access what we already have.
So Nancy, you know that we are going to
Love it.
reach out with an email after this to ask if you'd be willing to share a picture of what one of
Oh,
those
yes.
poster looks like. I think that would be great for the viewers and listeners to be able to see a little sample of what that looks like. That's awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah.
We did a lot at the first few days. We had few PD day this year. We were lucky in our school board. We had 5 PD day at the beginning of the school year. So we had time to do that. That was because sometimes we don't have time, but we
Yeah.
had time to talk about the norms. We had time to do these activities. We also had time to decide what's going to be our target of the meeting. Like, we're not going to talk about everything at every meeting.
Mm.
So for that, we look at our 3 years plan
3-year
for the
plan.
school,
Yeah.
and we look at the data. Like, we have all those evaluations. So what we should prioritize, and each group look at the data, look at the 3 years school plan, and they decide as a team what we should talk about at our meeting.
Mhm.
And it's all literacy, but they had the discussion. It's not like, okay, we have to talk about that, but they all came to a conclusion. We should talk about literacy first for our students.
Mhm.
So Nancy, what does the data, as you're talking about your teams really looking at the data and helping that to inform the focus of their meetings, but how are you using the data as an ongoing piece of your collaborative response?
Like, as a leader this year, it's one of my goal to use the data efficiently, because it's not easy.
No, it's not.
The thing is, we have so much data. So, like, we have all the data in all the, like, the behavior, the math, the literacy, numeracy. But for the collaborative response, like, I have data for the school board, and I have data for all my report I have to do. But I don't use those one in the meeting. I try to just take, because we decide we're going to talk about literacy.
Mm-hmm.
We look at the literacy data, but also this year we try to look also at the behavior data, but we don't have a lot of data. We are working on that, but we have so much data on literacy because ours, we have, I think it's same thing in all the school. We have to do the target evaluation from Alberta Education.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So we use those but the teacher and the school board and all, we have to collect the data at the beginning of the school year. But this year, what we try to do is take those data and try to put it useful for the teacher, not just a number. I learned so much from you. I try to apply it, but it's just not easy.
No, you're right, Nancy. It's not easy, but it is so important to be able to well, first of all, if you have to do those assessments anyway for the province, then you should be using that information, because it is bits that can help inform what you're doing. But then to put it into a usable format so that teachers can access the information easily. But you're right, that's not an easy task.
So Nancy, I know this was one of the things that you did in helping other schools support, is that idea of color code your data, get your data color coded. What does that look like for you at Ecole Notre Dame?
Oh, we have a nice color data. Yeah, we have all we did a lot of Excel sheet or a Google sheet, with color, but it's kind of too much colorful at this point. Like, we have a big sheet with all the data in numeracy, everything, but that's what I tried to do, and we are not there yet. But it's okay. We're talking about literacy. It's always to put what's the key challenge,
Right?
Because it's kind of so large. Like, you can say, like, this kid is a level in French. We're using number for level of reading level. So he's level 20. Okay, but what that's mean? Like, what
Yeah.
is key issue? What we should work on? And
Yeah.
that's where we are right now. We are like looking at the data. We have good number, nice color. But when we have the discussion, it's sometimes like, okay, we will want to talk about this student. Oh, he's not as level as for reading. And
Mhm.
my question is always like, okay, but why? Like, what is
Yeah.
Yeah, I
the
love
main
that.
issue?
Yeah.
But it's hard. But what I found, it's at the same time, we are working on our continuum of support. And we try to divide our continuum of support with those key challenges. But it's interesting because it's a process. It's not like, okay, that's the section. We're gonna do our continuum of support in literacy. Here are the 5 sections. Like, it's not like that because people have different language.
Mm.
So we need to discuss about that not during the collaborative meeting, but at other times. So it's also, I will say, doing my collaborative meeting with my staff, it's really helped me to think about the professional development for my staff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What we should work on. Like, I can see we are not on the same page. We're not using the same vocabulary. And this year, as you know, we have new curriculum. So there's a lot of new thing, and
Yeah.
we have to take time to discuss that and put that clearly in place. But for now, it's not really clear. I have to say, our data, we have nice number, but we need to be more precise on the key challenge. And we were working at the same time on our continuum of support, but it's not like clear. We change it all the time. We change the vocabulary. We not agree with this. We are not agree with this, or we reading something like I try to have, sometimes we have during PD day, we have to read an article and discuss about that. And that's we read that. Now we should change our continuum of support because we have this information now. So it's kind of a long process. That's why I'm telling, like, I was used to work with different schools. Now, when I'm writing that, sometimes I'm just like, okay, can we just take a decision and just go? But no, it's not like that.
Yeah.
We just move on and decide, but no, it's a process, and we really have to grow together in that.
Mhm.
It's not like a perfect formula. Just do this.
Yeah. I love that, Nancy, because that's absolutely true, that this is not a step-by-step process when you go through collaborative response, or first you do this and then you do that, but it is about the learning and the growing, like you said, in your own school. So you take those little pieces and then you start to build it out, and it teaches you about other pieces, and you realize the connections between different components within collaborative response. And it truly is that process that you were talking about.
So this next week, we're going to have our second meeting, and we're going to add an inspector of the data. That's the first time we're going to have this role, because I think we are ready for that. We were not ready for that like last year, but I think that next week we will try it.
Awesome.
Just because sometimes we're talking about students, but we don't have any data.
Yeah.
Or we have the data, but they are not like really clear, or we have too much data. So we will try. I don't know. I can talk to you in 2 weeks, but we will see if it's going to be working well.
We would love to hear about it, because the roles become important when you are facing that next step. And when you're thinking about the data piece, to have someone actually have the data open and continually referencing it as you go through is a really beautiful step.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think you can have this. You cannot go too fast, but you cannot go too slow. I don't know, it's not clear, but last year when we start doing the meeting, I was here as a new principal. I think we had to build a confidence, like to feel confident together. I think the staff need to know me better, trust me. So it was kind of a dancing thing, but I think we are there. It's not always perfect, and it's not the same thing with every team. Like I have 5 different teams, it's different with all of them. But it's always the same structure. Sometimes I feel like they want to change it. They want to, like, why we have to talk about the norms? It's kind of I will back up a little bit. Before the meeting, I have a Google form. So the week before the meeting, I send them a Google form. It's called Your Red Flag. So they have to fill this form with the student they want to talk, the challenge, the key issue they want to talk about. But at the beginning, some of the staff they were not filling this form. They just arrive at the meeting and I want to talk about, and I was like, nope, sorry, you didn't, like, you have to fill the form. But sometimes it was frustrated, but they learn, like, it's going to be always like that. The week before, you're going to receive the form. And if you want to talk about those students, you have to fill the form. And then the day after the meeting, I look at the form and I organize my meeting. Like, I know we're going to talk about those students. So I already put their name and the key issue in the
agenda.
Thank you. Yeah. So we have to do that, because I realize if we don't do that, you have people who want to talk about the same student all the time. And when they do the form, I can look at it before, and I can go and talk with the teacher before too. I see you put Kurtis' name again. We talk about Kurtis like again. So we
all the time
talk about Kurtis, and we have Kurtis in our we're going to talk about him at our support meeting. So you don't have to put Kurtis again at the collaborative meeting, or the kids with IPP. Sometimes you fill the form and you feel like you are tired and you are exhausted about a student. So you're going to fill the form with your emotion of the moment.
That's right.
So it's okay. And I understand that, but I have time to go and talk with the teacher before the meeting. So they understand at the meeting, we are talking about what we can do, what action you can put in a classroom next Monday, next week. But it takes time to get used to that, sometimes you are frustrated as a teacher because you want to talk about this little Kurtis, sorry.
Again.
Yeah, but when that's why I think it's so important to have another layers of meeting, because at some point they realize, okay, I understand, but I really need help with the student. We're going to help you. We're going to make sure we have support in place for this student, but it's not the moment at the collaborative meeting to talk about him. But at the beginning, it's kind of frustrated. But when you realize, oh, okay, some things happen, there's action in place, we have a next step for this student, then you realize, okay, I kind of understand now why we're doing that this way. Even if I show them a video, like we had a nice video about the collaborative response, they have to watch this video at the beginning of every year with the layers of things. But even if they watch this video, how it's look like in your school, it's different.
It is different. I love the way that you talk, Nancy, about that. The Google form that you're handing out ahead of time, and how staff that transition into some of the structures and processes that we use through collaborative response. It takes time, because watching it in a video and then living it are very different things.
Yes.
We would love to be able to have a copy of your Google form, because that is a question that we often get when we're working with other schools, is around the pre-meeting organizer, which is really your version of the pre-meeting
Yes.
organizer.
Mhm.
But being able to gather that information ahead of time so that you have a really good understanding about what's coming up. And that's a really great strategy when you think about that. Pre-meeting organizer is about people being able to think ahead of time about who are the students that they're bringing forward. But you, with a Google form, you get that opportunity to be able to look at, who are the children that the teachers are thinking about, and then align that with the purpose of your collaborative team meeting. So, yeah.
It's a line also because as I organize my schedule, like I said, we have the support meeting team before the week before. So usually we already receive the form for the meeting. So we as a team, we can look at that too. Like if we already have students we talk about and they are on the list, we say, okay, we know we're going to do that for this one. We're going to put this action in place, this. So it's all in the timing of, okay, we can talk about that before as a support team. We are ready for the meeting and we are ready for action to put action in place, not just having too long discussion. We like discussion, but to make sure we go through all the student and all the key issue we want to talk about.
Nancy, it is so exciting for me to have sat with you in that first conversation in my car. And
for part of the time in your car.
Well, okay, yeah, the first conversation was good. I took her to Drumheller.
Yes, that's true.
But your enthusiasm for the process and the integrity of collaborative response has not changed. You understand that we need all the components. We need the collaborative structures and processes. And you just talk, like, you have your norms now, you're bringing your roles in, you're building that up. You have data and evidence, and now you're adding in a new role that's going to make that a part of your meetings. So it's not that you went out and did everything all at once. It has been this ongoing growth. And you talked about your continuum of supports in that, okay, you built it, but you continue to refine it as we read this book, we went to this PD. So I'm going to put you on the spot here, because as a champion of collaborative response, my connection to you has really been around WeCollab. Since, that is the hat that I'm wearing, and I'm going to wear a little more often as I reduce my hostess duties. Why are you passionate about WeCollab, and why do you see it moving forward in your school?
This question is brought to you by WeCollab. Designed by educators for educators, this comprehensive digital system aligns with the foundational components of collaborative response. Moving from conversation to action, WeCollab empowers classrooms, schools, and systems to provide the very best response for each and every child by informing action-based decision-making with data and evidence supporting student success.
Well, because first of all, it's going to be so much more efficient if we use WeCollab efficiently. Because now, like I said, we're using the Google form for our red flag. But my goal is using WeCollab to be able to identify the student we want to talk about. Because now we have different documents, we have different, we have a Google sheet for this, and I think we can put a nice profile of each student in WeCollab. But we have to make sure we organize it well before we start using it.
Yeah,
we used it last year. We started using it last year, but I was the only one who was taking the notes, and it was kind of too much for me. I was taking the notes in WeCollab or putting the action in WeCollab and be the
trying to facilitate
the meeting, and it's kind of too much.
Yeah.
And before I was at this school, I know that they were using WeCollab also, but every teacher was using it on his own way. So it's kind of, I don't want to control everything, but I just want to make sure we use it efficiently for that. So last year I decided, okay, no, we're gonna stop. We need to work on the process, make sure we have we target which data we want in that, and understand everything, because I think it's really nice to use WeCollab, but we need to understand the process. Because, you know, just putting the color, the line under the picture of the student. For some teachers, like putting this line, they were changing this color code every like 2 weeks. They will put a target and intervention, but that's what we would like to have for the student, but he's not in the yellow zone, because it's more like why, like what we put in place, what action, what intervention, what strategy we put in place for this student.
Yeah.
So it was used like differently for different people. So I think last year I decided, okay, I will just work on WeCollab by myself and with my admin team. And then when we're going to be ready, we're going to use it again, but more efficiently for everybody. So we are in the process. Like this year at the first meeting, we took the note like on a piece of paper. Like we have the Google form, we have the agenda, we have this. It's different, too much paper. But I think if we use WeCollab, we can put everything in place. But we have to be ready for that. And the team have to be ready. And you cannot be one person who's doing all the roles during the meeting, because it's too much.
Nancy, you said everything I hoped you would say.
Oh, good.
Right down to the leader cannot do it all. Right down to the process trumps the program every time. The goal is to talk about kids, but recognizing that the eventual introduction of the WeCollab software that has been designed by educators for educators will help to make the process more efficient and effective. But the understanding of the process needs to be there first. So you said everything I hoped you would say, and I didn't have to say it first.
Don't record this part, but you can send me a bottle of wine.
And Nancy,
That's a great plan.
I think it's quite remarkable too that you talked about, you know, not taking on every role and not multitasking. We actually just released a webinar out that's accessible for anyone on demand, and we'll pop it into the show notes, where it's 10 considerations to transform your team meetings. And that's one of the things I share in that is, as a facilitator, don't multitask, use the roles and make sure that you're really focused in on one. So it's awesome to be able to hear that aha, because I had the same aha as a principal too. If I'm trying to do everything, I'm actually doing none of them well.
And I think with the time, like this year, like we are used to the structure, and I can see have people in my team, they can take more roles. Like they are willing to do, you know what, I can try to be the facilitator, and just like, yeah, go ahead, try it.
Oh, that's
like
good.
Just look at the agenda, and you can, you know, you can start sharing the leadership of the meeting, and you can see the strength of your team also. I have people will say they are really good to with the roles of how you say that in English, like the person who say no,
interrupter.
Yeah, so in French it's coupeur de parole. I have people in my team will say, hey, I want to do that. You're good doing it.
That's great.
Yes, you can see the leadership, and they want to share some roles, some tasks to do during the meeting. So I hope I will have somebody who will say, hey, I want to be the one using WeCollab. And I really think I will have teacher willing to do that.
Oh, that's so good.
So Nancy,
that makes my heart soar.
Yeah. We have reached that point in the podcast where we have one last question to put towards you, and it is the one that we always turn to Jen. to be able to ask that. So Jen, take it away.
Nancy, I'm a little sad, but I'm very happy too, because this is the last time I get to ask this question ever, but I'm really glad it gets to be with you. So if you knew then what you know now about implementing collaborative response, what advice would you give yourself?
Wow. Just one advice.
As much advice as you need to give yourself.
Don't try to go too fast. I think it's the main thing. Don't try to go too fast. Make sure you consolidate it, the process before. Because if you put too much at the same time, or it's not consistent, I think it's the most important. It's not the meeting, it's what's happened between the meeting. So you have, like, the meeting are so important. They have to be organized. But if you finish the meeting, turn off your computer, and then don't look at the action. Well, if people know you're not going to do anything, they will at some point know, okay, we talk about those students, but there's no action. Do the follow-up of the action. That's an important part too. It takes time, but that's what our support team can do too. So I don't know if it's clear enough. It's not an advice, but maybe it's an advice. I don't know. But it's important to be can we say redevable in English? Make sure the people know they have to put the action in place. They have to do the next step, because you can go from meeting to meeting doing nothing between the meeting. What's happened between the meeting? It's the action, it's the intervention. So we have to do it. That's the most important part for the student.
Absolutely.
And make sure you always stay focused on student. It's easy to not focus and thinking about all the challenges, but students are the most important part of our process.
Absolutely.
That's what it's about.
It is.
Yes.
And
Nancy,
please, Jen.
Nancy, I'm looking at some words that you wrote in English. You wrote the word constant. And I can tell in the way that you talk that collaborative response is the constant way in which you respond to the needs of students in your school. You wrote the word consistent. And I can hear that in the way you talk about how the structures of the meetings has to be the same, and that you have to follow the process with integrity. And you wrote the word accountable. And I can hear you talk about that now in the way you talk about the necessity of following up on the actions, so that what happens between the meetings is really what's impacting the students. The meetings are where we come together and talk about them, but it's the time between them where we're making things happen.
Yeah, what are we doing?
What are we doing for those students? So I can tell, and I don't know if our listeners and viewers can tell, that you're tired, because an hour in English is 2 hours in your brain at the way you have to process things. And so thank you so much for the time and the effort in sharing your journey, Nancy, because your story is a beautiful one. And I'm so grateful to have had the opportunity to have met you along this way.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Nancy. We wish you all the best, and we will talk again very, very soon.
Thank you,
Yes,
Nancy.
you can come in my school anytime.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was so great spending time with you and hearing about your latest adventures. So we really love the chance to be able to connect. So hopefully we'll be able to do that in person soon.
Yes, I hope so too. Thanks.
All right. Have a great rest of the day. Thanks, Nancy.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay. I always love the chance to be able to connect with Nancy, and I know that she is conscientious of, I know what I'm trying to say in French. How do I say it in English? But the message always comes through so clearly in regards to the intentionality, the thoughtfulness that she puts in place as a leader, and the idea that she just continually reinforced is this is a process, and we're going to stay true to the process, but it doesn't mean that we have to accomplish every piece. immediately it's ongoing. And how do we, again, it comes to how is she creating a culture of collaborative response within the building? It doesn't happen after one conversation. And I love how that continual cyclical iterative process is being exemplified through Nancy's leadership.
Yeah, and I think Nancy, well, she described it as a dance, which I love because it isn't that step-by-step process, but rather knowing your staff and knowing how much they can take on and knowing, you know, how much more do they need to understand before we take those big leaps into change. And that timing piece for her is super clear. Like,
but with that timing, knowing there's going to be times where we have to go back.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to pause, go back, re-establish so that we can move forward consistently.
Well, and she talked about watching a video at the beginning of every year, regardless of how many new staff or not, we all recenter ourselves by watching that video at the beginning of the year and then engaging in the work, which is, really wise, really wise.
Well, and her ability to take templates that already exist, right? That unpacking team knows when she talked about, but also to create activities to, again, create that sense of team, that sense of cohesion, and to reiterate the message that the expertise is at the table.
I love that messaging.
Yeah, me too. And she was so clear about even to do the activity of how many years of experience collectively do we have, right? But just a simple activity that allows people to start to reflect on, actually, do we need a specialist to help us with some of the differentiated instructional strategies that we need in our classroom? Actually, no, we've got a lot of experience and a lot of expertise right here that we just need to figure out how to access. But I think that's beautiful.
I think this aligns though to the thoughtfulness in Nancy's leadership, because that activity that she described and she showed the posts or the flip charts, that's not the first time I've seen that. I've seen that at the start of the year. There was Facebook groups that were posting all over the place of different groups that had done this and they had done it with their teams. And in some of those situations, it was even reinforced with the, I'm looking for a fun activity to do with my team. Does anyone have any suggestions? But for her, it's done with a high degree of intentionality of, we're not just doing this to be fun or to create cohesion. It's because we're trying to surface that, like she said with the kindergarten, we have 35 years of experience across 18 different schools between us collectively. When we get to a collaborative team meeting, it's reinforcing we have a great deal of expertise in the room. How do we leverage it? And so that simple activity, which somebody else might just use as, I need something fun to do with my teams to fill the start of a year, it's for 20 minutes, right? Where it's, no, this is done with a high degree of intentionality that has an endpoint that I'm trying to get to.
And that endpoint is building that culture of collaboration.
100%.
So in that activity, she's doing great things to move their school to that effective culture and in collaborating. You know, the other thing that I loved that she was talking about was the explicit intention of the school support team and how they're meeting every 2 weeks and how she has had to kind of build up and assure teachers that when they're not talking about, you know, especially students who need really intensive wraparound
Kurtis,
support.
I think she kept mentioning. Yes,
but that we're not going to talk about that student at the collaborative team meeting because we have another level of support. And just thinking through how much, like, what does that do for staff, knowing that, you know, we may not be talking about that student here, but we will talk about that student here, and it gives them great assurance. And Nancy even spoke to this, confidence that they're not going to be left, that we have a space to be able to talk about every child, and goes back to that whole principle that we share all
Yep.
the time of every child deserves a team. And in Nancy's school, she has teams very clearly laid out so that we have that assurance that no child is left behind.
But I loved how she referenced that by saying it takes some of the emotion out of the who do I need to bring forth today? Because I might be exasperated with a particular child within the room, but take your emotion out of that. Recognize, let's trust that they're being attended to in the best way that we know how. We're putting actions in place. And now let's go back to our data to determine who do we bring forth, not just the what was keeping me awake last night.
There were so many things that came out with Nancy's conversation. The other one too that really stood out to me is, as she's engaging in collaborative team meetings with her staff, recognizing that there are spaces where we identify areas of learning, and then being able to use their PD, like she was talking about. She was talking about sharing articles with her staff to be able to build out more of those areas of expertise when they recognize that there's either a gap within the collaborative team meeting or within their continuum of supports. But all that connectedness that she speaks to is really exciting and impactful.
So I guess I get to summarize this whole conversation now.
Go for it, Jen.
I'm gonna bring it to a few words here, okay? Integrity, intentionality, and grace. And I know we didn't mention that last one, but I'm going to talk about why when I get there. So the integrity of the process. So the layers of teams, that is integrity when we talk about those collaborative structures and processes, because there has to be that space to move from the collaborative team meeting to talk about that student that needs more attention than that. And so she has built those teams in. The recognition that the expertise is at the table, right? The intentionality with which she plans the activities to show that. The intentionality around the timing. She talked about, she didn't say the words exactly as you say them, Kurtis, go slow to go fast. But again, that intentionality in put a little out. Oh no, maybe we need to reel back. We tried we collab, but it was too much for just me to manage. So we rolled it back. And so just that reflective practice. And then grace. You talk about Nancy's leadership style. She talked about learning from mistakes. She talked about trying something and refining it. There is a grace that comes in that, and the not beating yourself up, and the recognizing that by creating that culture of collaboration, she's created a space where staff can be vulnerable and try the things they need to for those students, that time between the meetings that she talks about. But then they can come back and they can talk about their experiences with it. And so I get to say, I have been at the hands of Nancy's grace. You've heard my story. Nancy, I thank you for being so graceful for my mistakes, because it gave me an opportunity to continue to learn from you. So thank you both, because this will be the last time that I get to sign off. So I'm glad to have been a part of the key learnings from our partners, and I look forward to the opportunities to engage in them through WeCollab. And I look forward to listening and hearing more as you continue to grow collaborative response as a way that we meet the needs of students and transform education.
Absolutely. And Jen, you've been integral to leading these stories and sharing these stories out with the listeners as well. So even though you won't be there for the sign off, we know that you are going to be there as the WeCollab software continues to grow and expand, and your expertise becomes so absolutely critical in that work with partners.
Absolutely.
So
thank you so much, Jen, for all of your work today and for the past number of years. And we look forward to all of the things that you have to bring in WeCollab as well.
All right, so that brings an end to this episode. Please make sure that you check out the show notes for a number of the resources and links that we've referred to. We've also included a discount code if you're interested in our 2022 text collaborative response. There is a code to be able to get 10% off that text as well available. We wish you all the best, and please make sure to subscribe, like the episode, and we will see you next time on Leading Collaborative Response.
Take care.
For more on collaborative response, visit jigsawlearning.ca or join the JL Insider to receive access to newly added resources and content. Make sure to follow us on social media. Subscribe to the podcast and the Jigsaw Learning YouTube channel to access past and upcoming episodes. Join us again to continue to build your own capacity in leading collaborative response in your context.